This week on Supercars Talk, Gen 3 has kicked off with great success at Newcastle. The big news this week, we finally know what happened with the black Mustang badges on the front of the Gen 3 cars. So quite a few people had made comment that Ford was running black Mustang badges while the normal car had chrome ones. Apparently the black ones were on a Dark Horse track pack. Ford has reversed this decision and will be running with chrome badges on all of the Mustangs at the Grand Prix because the black ones didn't look good on TV. Well, we all knew that from the photos of when the cars were released because it didn't look like there was a badge on there. But anyway, they figured that out over the weekend, and normal programming will be resumed at the Grand Prix so we can all sleep tight tonight. The actual big news before the weekend, though, was there was finally a parity change. Ford has been complaining for quite a while now that the downforce on the Mustang and the Camaro was not fair, and didn't quite go their way, I'm not sure. Anyway, on the front wheel arch, I suppose, the Camaro got a little gurney flap added on to give them a little bit more downforce at the front, which supposedly evened them out. So I'm not sure if that's what Ford was complaining and what they were aiming for from the recent VCAT homologation changes, but that's what happened. And to me, parity was pretty even over the weekend. We did have, I suppose, depends how you look at it, a couple of wins for the Camaro, but yeah, it did look pretty, to me, it looked pretty even. Hard to tell though on a street circuit. It will be more, it will be more noticeable, the parity at the Australian Grand Prix circuit there at Albert Park. We got to see Slade's big new sponsor for the year, and it is, drumroll, the same as Golding's car. This is obviously a bit of a thank you to Newlon for sponsoring the other car for the year. We'll sticker this one up the same, so it looks like we're a big team and whatnot, and that not that we haven't got a sponsor for that car. I don't know if any money has changed hands for that one, but the car does look pretty good on track. The Groves have signed Kevin Estre, I think I've pronounced that right, for the Enduros, presumably with Matty Payne. Apparently he's done 4 of the Bathurst 12 hours. He's a pretty good Porsche driver over the world. He's driving for Penske in their ALMS or something program this year. Bit of a left ball signing there from the Groves, but it could pay off because it's not like all the other co-drivers have got a lot of Gen 3 experience to fall back on. And in other co-driver news, Erebus has confirmed that David Russell will be partnering Brodie Kostecki at Sandown and Bathurst. Again, this makes it 3 years in a row for that pairing, and previously they had confirmed that Jackie Perkins will be with Will Brown for the Enduros. Now, for the racing over the weekend, I'm not going to cover Super 2 at the moment because there's enough in this. I might try and do a separate video on that. Anyway, the big talking point for over the racing over the weekend, parity. No. Triple8 getting kicked out of the first race because of their illegal cooling apparatus positioning. So they put that in the wrong spot. Apparently they went and talked to Adrian Burgess about it, and he said, yep, looks good. Didn't actually say, hey, that's legal or anything. Tickford and Walkinshaws put in a protest after the first race when they saw them filling up the ice box or the dry ice box during a pit stop. Now, whatever it is, they have to be mounted in the passenger seat position. Triple8 are claiming there's no passenger seat in these cars. They're not real cars, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, everyone else is mounting them wrong anyway, so we should be allowed to get away with mounting them wrong as well. Well, everyone else got them in the passenger seat area where, they're supposed to be, but that's neither here nor there. Put in your protest and see how you go over it. It's an ingenious idea putting it there because it does get it away from the air spike guy and the fuel fillet that are on the passenger's side. But when you were thinking about doing this Triple 8, did you not think, hey, why do we always put it in the passenger seat? And then maybe that's a rule. Check through the rule book. The rule says we have to put it here. Maybe go, hey, can we get this changed and tell all the other teams as well? No, none of that happened. They just went off and kind of did their own thing and paid the penalty for it. Yeah, so this will rage on forever, I suppose, and will be brought up over the next 18 years, like when Scott had that engine that was about to blow up at Bathurst. But yeah, it's just a shame, I suppose, that we had that controversy in what was the first race, and I suppose it skews the results a little bit because, my God, they were fast on Saturday and they didn't quite seem to have the same amount of pace on Sunday, so maybe there was something in where they mounted the dry ice boxes. So rather than go through the weekend in a blow by blow, I've been kind of running through the teams like last year, just a bit of talking points on each of them, so I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to run in championship order, so every team gets a bit of a mention, and this highlights the championship order after the weekend, which is a little bit surprising. The 4-car teams get bunched into one big lump, with the leading of the 4 cars being the first one mentioned. I'm just mentioning that because some of you might be a bit, how the hell did a certain team end up second? Well, that's their lead 2 cars are in second, the other 2 are somewhat further back. But kicking all this off is Erebus. Erebus is leading the team's championship. Pole for Brody on Saturday, followed up by a very strong race. He did have some troubles during that race, but he did finally end up on the bottom step of the podium after all was said and done on that. He started 11th and ended up 4th in the race. Sunday, we won't mention qualifying. That was not good for either of them, but Brody fought through for 6th position. Will ended up in 13th, but he did move forward in the race, so that wasn't so bad. Brody is 2nd in the championship. Will Brown down in 6th. Not bad at all. Somewhat nearly my predictions for those 2 guys. That gives them the lead in the team's championship. Also, those cars do look really, really good on track, although I'd have to admit the Shaw and Partners is very hard to read. Coca-Cola stands out a mile, but, you know, a thin white lettering on a black background, hard to read. Next up is Brad Jones Racing. Because the top 1 car strong and the second one reasonable. Not all the 4 cars are second in the championship. Jaime started off strong, so 8th and 12th in qualifying, 5th and 7th in the races. So once again, Brad Jones Racing car moved forward in the races. That puts him 5th overall in the point score. Pretty good start to this new area. Fullwood was mid-pack all weekend, probably better than what he did most of last year. Nothing really surprising, but he did at least move forward in both the races as well. A lot of guys did go kind of backwards from their qualifying. He did end up 11th on Sunday in the race. That was kind of the highlight for his positioning over the whole weekend. The other 2 cars were there. Grove Racing up next. Reynolds was quick all weekend. Highlights, pole and then 3rd position in the finishing positions on Sunday. Payne didn't crash over the weekend. That's a good start for the rookie. He was the top rookie on both days, which is pretty impressive. He did beat some established stars while he was out there. Unfortunately, I still do think there's too much white on these cars. Other than that, a really good start to the year from the boys at Grove. Team 18 are next up. Their position is probably more on how badly some of the other teams did rather than how good they did overall. Both drivers did finish in the top 10 on Saturday, with Frosty in 10th and Pye in 17th on Sunday. They were there all weekend. Yeah, there's not much to report from them really other than they were there. Walkinshaw Andretti United. Chaz, his finishing position, he qualified second, he finished second, he qualified second, he finished second. So much the nearly man over the weekend. If he didn't get kind of bumped and run on Sunday, would he have held off Shane? I don't think he would have. I think he was probably still going to finish second, but solid. Very, very solid, which gives him the championship lead. Very, very impressive from him. Percat, he was there. There were some issues with the car, but yeah. Gen 3 has not helped his cause yet. Tickford, the second 4-car team that may as well just turn up with one car. Cam Waters, very impressive weekend. Third in the championship currently. He won the race on Saturday after all the kerfuffle. He was in the lead fight on Sunday as well, other than clipping that wall, bending the steering. He did a lap, which I mean, I don't know the exact times that he was doing and exactly what was wrong with the car and that, but he seemed to go okay on that lap. Then they came into the pits and they started whacking the car with a hammer for what felt like an eternity. And then he rejoined somewhat back down the field a bit. And yeah, he went on, I haven't actually got the result there in the end. I think he ended up just outside or right at the back of the top 10 in the end. But for me, I would have thought, you know, we're not going to actually fix this. Just send it the way it is. Like, don't spend an eternity whacking it with a hammer for not much return. The steering wheel still looked quite bent as he was going down the straight. I'm not a mechanic, I'm not part of the team or whatever, but to me it just looked like they should have just sent it, and yeah, he would have been, you know, bolts a new set of tyres on or whatever, send it, he would have still been running around in second, maybe third at that point, rather than then having to fight back up through the field, and probably would have finished off with a better result overall. Courtney was the first to hit the wall properly. Unfortunately, this was in the top 10 shootout on Sunday, so he didn't partake in the race. And then other than the fact that Fraser took himself out on the start on Sunday, didn't really notice he was there. And yeah, Randall, he was there. Yeah, it's just a nothing weekend once again. Premier Racing. It's surprising that these guys are so far down in the order, considering they seem to be so far up the front all weekend. Both cars in both shootouts. The impressive one was Golding with third on the grid on Sunday, which he turned into fourth in the race. Slade went really backwards both days, but lots and lots and lots of promise from these guys. Let's hope they can continue kind of moving forward, or yeah, at least kind of putting in these results and figuring out how to keep that qualifying pace while, you know, building more race pace out of the car. And the cars look pretty good on track too. They did look a bit plain in the promo shots, but when they get out there on track and on TV, yeah, they are a pretty good looking livery on those two. Triple 8. Saturday, it felt like just a normal day at the office. Go out, dominate the race, finish 1-2, job done, we'll all go home. And then the storm happened. I've discussed that earlier, so I won't get into that anymore. Sunday was a little bit more, I suppose, your normal-ish kind of weekend from them. Shane, bit of ordinary qualifying, races back to the front, bump and runs someone off to take the win. Yeah, he was a bump and run. Probably still would have won the race anyway, but does he need to be doing things like that? He could have redressed and then repassed, you know, Chaz, and it would have all been fine. Feeney just did Feeney things and ended up finishing fifth on Sunday. They're a long way back in the championship though, because of all those points that they lost on Saturday. There will be an appeal, but I don't think they'll get up on that one. And finally, I'm going to lump the last three together because there's not much to say about any of them. Madstone Racing, DJR, and then Blanchard Racing Team. Just a little bit disappointing from all of them. LeBrock on Sunday was the highlight out of these 5 guys. He qualified in the top 10 and ultimately finished 8th in the race. Cam Hill did a rookie kind of, mistake-free job, just, kept it running, got experience, well done there. The DJR boys, there just wasn't any pace from them all weekend. There was no highlight. They were there. It's just, normally you'd get at least one of them in the top 10 shootout and putting in a banger performance or something like that. Just wasn't there. Don't know what's going on. And pretty much the same, Hazelwood just had a really quiet weekend with Blanchard Racing Team. I nearly said Matt Stone Racing there, but there was quite a lot of times he seemed to be driving around with one or the other of the Matt Stone Racing cars, and you kind of look at it and go, well, mate, was the move worth it if he's just still driving around kind of in the same area out there? So after all that, I reckon the racing was better. The cars looked amazing. The true test, though, will be at the Grand Prix because, Newcastle, always hard to pass. There seemed to be a bit more pass. It felt like there was more passing going on out there. Maybe that was because they were eating their tyres a bit more. The pit stops looked quite weird, where changing the wheels so slowly and so deliberately because the fuel fill was so long, they did not have to rush that. That'll be a little bit of a different thing going on at Albert Park because they won't have the fuel stops. They will only have the tyre stops, so there will be a bit more pressure on the teams in that respect. So we'll probably get a bit more of a proper form guide when they do hit the Albert Park circuit. But yeah, let me know down in the comments. Do you agree? Did you enjoy the racing over the weekend? It's all the promise of Gen 3. Like, I've got a smile on my face over it. But yeah, some of you still negative about it, or have they proven that Gen 3 was the right way to go? And now there's just a little something I want to cover off before the end of this video. I was going to joke about it being big news, but it probably deserves to be right back here in the video. Renee Gracie has got herself back into the limelight. Apparently, she wants to do a wildcard at Sandown and Bathurst, and hasn't got a team, hasn't got sponsors, hasn't got anything lined up, but she has got a docu-series thing with Stan lined up for it, her road to redemption, where, she gets back on the grid and blah, 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 and all this. Apparently trying to find a team has been hard for her. I can't imagine why. But anyway, it's worth mentioning. Don't forget, me and the boys will be on Backseat Drivers on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. We kind of talk F1, IndyCar, any other motorsports that kind of come up. We take viewer questions during the night. It's just a bit of fun, bit of relaxing Thursday night. So check that out. It's on the separate Backseat Drivers channel. I'll put a link in the show description. But until next time, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.